I've been driving long haul for about 9 years now. Mostly southern routes, Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, and over time, you get used to the loneliness. You make peace with it. There's a rhythm to the road, especially at night, but some stretches feel off. Not dangerous, exactly, just like the air is heavier, or the silence too deep. That's how I felt the first time I stopped at that little rest area off Route 82 in Alabama. It was late, just after 2 a.m., and I was dead on my feet. I'd been pushing too hard, trying to make Tuscaloosa before dawn, but I knew I was fading. That kind of tired where your eyes burn and you forget what day it is. I saw the sign for the rest area a few miles out and figured I'd pull off, get 4 hours in the sleeper, and keep rolling come morning. The place wasn't much, 2 beat-up vending machines under a flickering fluorescent awning, a single-stall bathroom, and a long lot for rigs. No cars, no other drivers. Except one other semi. It was parked crooked across the far end of the lot, engine idling low. No company logo. No plates. Just a big white cab with a streaky trailer, like it hadn't been washed in years. I pulled in closer to the vending machines, killed the engine, logged my hours, and climbed back into the sleeper. I always lock up, even in remote places. Too many stories about weirdos breaking into cabs or siphoning fuel. But something about that other truck bugged me. It wasn't just the lack of plates. It was too still, even with the engine running. I waited a while, listening. No door opened. No movement. No CB chatter. Just that steady diesel rumble like it was breathing slow and deep. Eventually I chalked it up to some other exhausted driver catching sleep like me, and I dozed off. I don't know how long I was out when something woke me. Not a sound, more like a feeling. That ice in your veins alertness, like when your body knows something's wrong before your brain catches up. I blinked a few times. It was still pitch black out. I reached for my phone and saw the time, 3:37 a.m. Then I noticed something weird. My logbook was gone. It had been sitting right on the dash where I always keep it. I searched the seat, under the clipboard, on the floor, nothing. That's when I realized the glove box was open too. I sat there in the dark for a minute, heart pounding. I knew for a fact I'd locked everything before I went to sleep, and it didn't feel like a break-in. Nothing else was touched. My wallet was right where I left it. That's when I noticed something worse. Outside the window, the other truck was gone. No taillights, no engine noise, just an empty patch of lot and the faint hum of the vending machines. I opened the door slowly and stepped out, scanning the area. The air was thick with humidity, buzzing with cicadas, but there were no tire marks. No sign that any truck had ever been parked there. Then I turned around. My rig was parked at the opposite end of the lot. Not where I left it, not near the vending machines, but right where that other semi had been sitting earlier. I just stood there for a second, staring. I don't sleepwalk. I don't move my truck half asleep. And there were no drag marks or scuffs on the pavement like someone towed it. It was like it had just switched places. I climbed back in, tried to calm myself down. Maybe I was more exhausted than I thought. Maybe I'd parked there first and remembered it wrong. Except I didn't. Because sitting on the driver's seat, where my logbook should have been, was a different one. Same make, same color. But it wasn't mine. The name written in Sharpie on the inside cover said C. Dillard, I-82 South Run. And the last log entry was dated August 3rd, 1997. That's when the bottom dropped out of my stomach. I flipped through it. It was full of neat, old-school handwriting. Pre-ELD days. Last recorded stop, rest area 17 miles east of Reform, Alabama. That was this place. The last line just said, truck parked. Going to sleep. Saw another rig. No plates. That was it. I didn't know what the hell to think. I just sat there, holding the stranger's logbook while the hairs on my arms stood up straight. Then, behind me, I heard something. Not a voice, not a knock. Just the soft, unmistakable click of a cab door latching shut. I spun around, heart in my throat, but there was nobody there. Nothing outside. Just my own reflection in the side mirror. I didn't even think. I threw the logbook out the window, started the engine, and got the hell out of there. Didn't stop again until I was almost in Georgia. I've told a few other truckers about it over the years. Most laugh it off. Some don't. One guy told me that rest area has been the site of at least 2 disappearances, rigs left running, drivers never found. State shut it down for a while in the early 2000s, but they reopened it after a budget shift. I never went back. Don't even drive 82 if I can help it. But sometimes I still think about that other semi, the one with no plates. And I wonder if some other tired driver pulled in there last night, and found a logbook with my name on it. Story 2. I've been driving trucks for almost 20 years. Long-haul stuff, mostly Midwest to the Southwest, sometimes alone, sometimes with a buddy when the route's a little more intense. You get used to a certain rhythm out here. You learn to love the silence, the AM crackle of a ball game fading in and out, the endless nothing stretching past your headlights. But there are things you never really get used to. The nights that feel just slightly off. The stretches of highway where your gut tells you not to pull over, even if you're dead tired. This story happened in 2018, somewhere outside of Alpine, Arizona. It was just after 1 a.m., and I was coming through Route 191, hauling a shipment of metal tools from a warehouse in Tucson up to Durango. I remember it was dead quiet on the road, not a single pair of headlights in either direction for miles. The terrain out there is mostly pine forest with long, sloping curves, and even in summer it gets cold at night. It's the kind of road that makes you start talking to yourself just to hear something. I just passed one of those old wooden mile markers when I saw her, a woman standing on the side of the road, waving her arms like crazy. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie, standing next to an older-looking sedan that had its hazards flashing. I slowed down fast and pulled onto the shoulder maybe 50 feet ahead of her, kicking up dust as I went. As I hopped out, she started jogging toward me, her breath visible in the air. "Thank you. Oh my God, thank you," she said. No one stopped all night. She looked like she was in her mid-30s, maybe a little younger. Her hoodie was zipped all the way up, and her hands were shoved in the sleeves like she was freezing. Her eyes were bloodshot, but not in a drunk way, more like she'd been crying. I asked her what happened, and she said her car had broken down around 9 p.m., but she couldn't get a signal to call anyone. She didn't have a flashlight, and she'd just been sitting there in the dark hoping someone would stop. "I thought I was going to die out here," she laughed, but it sounded more like a reflex than actual humor. I offered to let her sit in the cab to warm up while we figured out a plan. She hesitated a second, then climbed in. I noticed she didn't grab anything from her car. Not a purse, not a bag, not even her phone. I chalked it up to shock. People do weird things when they're panicking. Back in the cab, I gave her a bottle of water and let dispatch know I was making a quick detour to help someone out. She told me her name was Claire, and that she'd been driving from Phoenix to visit family in Colorado Springs. I said that was a hell of a route to take, and she nodded like she knew. Then I noticed something strange. I asked what mile marker she'd broken down at. She thought for a second and said, "Mile 217. I glanced at the GPS. We were passing marker 312. I looked at her. "You sure?" She looked confused. "Yeah. Why? That was almost 100 miles back." She didn't say anything for a minute, just stared ahead at the dark highway, lips slightly parted. Then she said, I must have gotten the number wrong." But her tone had changed. The grateful, chatty nervousness was gone. Now she sounded distracted, like she was remembering something she didn't want to remember. I let it go. We were about 30 minutes from the next gas station with decent lighting, and I figured she'd be safer getting help there. I kept trying to make small talk, but she didn't say much after that. At one point I asked if she wanted to call her family. She said her phone died hours ago. Again, I offered to let her use mine. She declined. When we finally pulled into the gas station, I parked in the far corner away from the pumps. I stepped out to go let the clerk know we needed a tow. When I turned to ask Claire if she wanted anything from inside, the cab was empty. Doors still closed. Passenger side still locked. I looked around the lot, no sign of her. I walked around the truck twice, checked the bathroom, even asked a couple of teens near the vending machines if they'd seen a woman get out of my rig. Nothing. I went back to the cab, fully expecting her to be hiding behind the seats or something. It was empty. Even the water bottle I gave her was still sitting there, unopened. That's when I started feeling really cold, even though it was a warm night. I got back on the road maybe 20 minutes later, still rattled. I considered calling the cops, but what would I even say? I gave a ride to a stranded woman and she disappeared. No ID, no phone, no trace. But it didn't end there. About a month later, I was driving the same stretch at around the same time, 1:30 a.m., Route 191. My buddy Ray was with me this time, doing the overnight run together. As we rounded a curve near mile marker 311, he sat up in his seat and squinted ahead. "Hey," he said slowly. "Is that someone on the shoulder?" I looked, and sure enough, there was a figure standing on the side of the road. Same spot, same car, same blinking hazards. But this time, I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. As we passed, I caught a flash of her face in the side mirror. She wasn't waving. She was just standing there, perfectly still, eyes locked on mine. Ray asked why I didn't pull over. I told him the truth. I think I already picked her up. Story 3. I've been a trucker for most of my adult life. I drive long-haul routes, sometimes coast to coast, sometimes just regional, depending on the season and the contracts. I've seen my fair share of weird stuff out there, strange lights in the sky, wrecks that didn't make sense, animals standing in the middle of nowhere. You get used to odd things on the road. But what happened 2 years ago on a run through Nevada? I still don't talk about it unless I've had a couple drinks. It's the only time in my life I felt like I was inside something wrong, like the laws of reality were bending just slightly, enough to notice, enough to scare the hell out of me. It was late October, and I was hauling refrigerated goods out of Sacramento, headed towards Salt Lake City. I usually avoided Route 50, the loneliest road in America, but I was ahead of schedule and figured I'd shave off a couple hours. That stretch of highway is isolated, sure, but it's peaceful if you're prepared. Nothing but desert, mountains, and old ghost towns. I was somewhere between Ely and Austin, probably 1:30 in the morning, when I saw someone walking on the side of the road. That alone was weird. There's nothing out there for miles. No gas stations, no motels, barely even any exits. The guy had his thumb out. Tall, lanky build, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. His face was hard to see in the dim wash of my headlights. I slowed down out of habit more than intention. I don't usually pick up hitchhikers, especially not at that hour, but something about him didn't register as threatening. I stopped on the shoulder and rolled down the passenger window a few inches. "You all right?" I called out. He nodded. "Yeah, just trying to get east." His voice was calm. Not desperate, not pushy. Just kind of neutral. After a pause, I figured, what the hell? I had 6 hours of driving left and no company. I popped the door open for him. He climbed in without hesitation. No bag, no gear. Just slid into the seat and shut the door like he belonged there. "Thanks," he said. "Appreciate the ride, Eric." I stiffened. I hadn't told him my name. I hadn't spoken it. It wasn't visible anywhere in the cab, and even if he somehow saw it on paperwork or something, there was no way he could have read that in the dark. My name tag was in my duffel bag, zipped up. The digital login on the dash said E. Ross. Nothing more. "Sorry," I said slowly. "Have we met before?" He smiled a little. Didn't answer. Just leaned back in the seat and stared out the window. I should have told him to get out right then and there. But I didn't. Maybe I was too thrown off. Maybe I didn't want to escalate it. Maybe I just wanted to rationalize it. The desert can play tricks on your mind. Maybe he saw my name somewhere I didn't realize. We drove in silence for a few minutes. He didn't ask where I was headed, didn't offer any small talk. Just sat there, still as a statue. Eventually I glanced over and said, "You from around here?" He turned and looked at me for the first time. "I used to be," he said. "Before the accident." There was something in the way he said it. Before the accident, like it meant more than it should. Like I was supposed to know what he meant. "What accident?" I asked. He smiled again, faint and slow. "You'll see." I didn't know what to say to that. My heart was thudding in my chest, and I could feel sweat starting to beat at the back of my neck, even though the AC was running. I reached down casually, pretending to adjust my phone, and turned on the voice recorder. I figured if he tried anything, I'd want proof. For the next hour or so, we drove in silence. Every time I glanced over, he hadn't moved. Not an inch. Like he wasn't breathing. At one point, I caught a glimpse of his hands resting in his lap, and I swear to God, his fingernails looked black. Not like dirt, not like polish, more like dried blood. But every time I looked directly, they seemed normal again. Just before we hit the outskirts of Eureka, he suddenly spoke. "You ever drive through Crescent Wash?" That caught me off guard. Crescent Wash is an old mining site off the main route, not even on most maps. I'd only been through there once, years ago, by accident when I missed a turn. It's nothing now, just an abandoned pit, a few rusted trailers, and one collapsed bridge. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Why?" "That's where it happened," he replied. "The fire." I felt a chill go through me. I don't know how or why, but something about that sentence felt personal. Like he wasn't just telling me a fact. He was warning me. I pulled into a gas station just outside Eureka, one of the only lit places for miles. I told him I needed to top off and use the restroom. He nodded but didn't get out. When I came back, he was gone. Door still closed. No footprints. No sound. Just gone. I checked the cab, the sleeper, the outside. Nothing. Not a trace. Like he'd evaporated. The recorder was still running. I played it back. hoping to catch our conversation, and that's when I realized something that still makes my skin crawl. His voice wasn't on the recording. Mine was. Clear as day. Every question, every sentence I spoke. But his replies? Silence. Like I was talking to myself the whole time. I drove the rest of the way to Salt Lake in complete silence, heart pounding, lights on full blast even in the dawn. I didn't sleep when I got there. I just sat in a motel room with the curtains drawn, playing the recording over and over. The next day, I searched for anything about a fire in Crescent Wash. There wasn't much. Just an old newspaper clipping from the late 80s. A gas explosion at an illegal mining camp. 5 dead, bodies badly burned, 1 never recovered. The article listed the names. One of them was Eric Ross. My name. But I wasn't even born until 91. I don't know who that man was. I don't know how he knew my name, or what he wanted from me. Maybe he wasn't real in the way we understand it. Maybe he was never really in my truck at all. But sometimes, when I'm driving that stretch of highway again, I check the passenger mirror. Just to be sure. And once, just once, I thought I saw him sitting there again, smiling.